Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be sharing with you some upcoming books in the historical fiction genre that are going to be released between January through July of 2020. So you guys, let's get going. I got 20 recommendations here for you guys. A lot of these books are kind of just personal favorites that I was kind of pinpointing, that I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. But yeah, as always with the historical fiction genre, there's hundreds, if not thousands of books released like every year, all year. So yeah, this is just a very small sampling of books being released, and like I mentioned, just a lot of more personal favorites that I'm personally kind of looking forward to. So yeah, it's going to be up to you guys in the comments below to share with me any other books that you guys have heard of that maybe I have not heard of. So let's get going. I got 20 books here, and to make it a smooth flowing video, I'm going to be reading off of the Goodreads plot summaries to give you guys an idea of what all the books are about. First up is The Deep by Alma Katsu, and this is definitely one of my most anticipated books I'm looking forward to, you guys. So, what is this book about? Someone or something is haunting the Titanic. Oh. This is the only way to explain the series of misfortunes that had plagued the passengers of the ship from the moment they set sail. Mysterious disappearances, sudden deaths, now suspended in an eerie, unsettling twilight zone during the 4 days of the liner's illustrious maiden voyage. A number of the passengers, including millionaires Madeline Astor and Benjamin Guggenheim, the maid Annie Hebley, and Mark Fletcher, are convinced that something sinister is going on. And then, as the world knows, disaster strikes. Years later, and the world is at war, and a survivor of that fateful night, Annie, is working as a nurse on the 6th voyage of the Titanic's sister ship, the Britannic, now refitted as a hospital ship. Plagued by the demons of her doomed first and near-fatal journey across the Atlantic, Annie comes across an unconscious soldier she recognizes while doing her rounds. It is the young man, Mark, and she is convinced that he could not have survived the sinking of the Titanic. Ooh, yes, seriously, I am loving this synopsis for this so far, you guys. Next up, The Queen's Fortune by Alison Pataki, another book that I'm highly looking forward to. As the French Revolution ravages the country, Desiree Clary is faced with the life-altering truth that the world she has known and loved is gone, and it's fallen on her to save her family from the guillotine. A chance encounter with Napoleon Bonaparte, the ambitious and charismatic young military prodigy, provides her answer. When her beloved sister Julie marries his brother Joseph, Desiree and Napoleon's futures become linked, quickly entering into their own passionate, dizzying courtship that leads to a secret engagement. They vow to meet in the capital once his career has been secured. But her newly laid plans with Napoleon turn to sudden heartbreak, thanks to the rising star of Parisian society, Josephine. Okay. Sorry, I was running the sentences together. So yeah, Napoleon meeting, because Josephine is like his future wife, right? Yeah. Once again, Desiree's life is turned on its head. Swept to the glittering halls of the French capital, Desiree is plunged into the inner circle of the new ruling class, becoming further entangled with Napoleon, his family, and the new empress. But her fortunes shift once again when she meets Napoleon's confidant and star general, the indomitable Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte. It's French, I can't pronounce it, you guys. As the two men in Desiree's life become political rivals and military foes, the question that arises is this: must she choose between the love of her new husband and the love of her nation and its emperor? From the lavish estates of the French Riviera to the raucous streets of Paris and Stockholm, Desiree finds herself at the epicenter of the rise and fall of an empire, navigating a constellation of political giants and dangerous shifting alliances. Emerging from an impressionable girl into a fierce young woman, she discovers that to survive in this world, she must learn to rely upon her instincts and her heart. Seriously, this sounds so good, you guys. Next up, All the Ways We Said Goodbye, and this is by multiple authors. We have Beatrice Williams, Lauren Willig, who I love, and Karen White. And yeah, these three lady writers, they've teamed up for quite a number of books now, and this is like their 3rd or 4th team up together, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. France, 1914. As war breaks out, Ariel becomes trapped on the wrong side of the front with her father. When the Germans move into their family's ancestral estate, using it as their headquarters, Ariel discovers she knows the German major's aide-de-camp, Maximilian von Sternberg. She and the dashing young officer first met during Ariel's debutante days in Paris. Despite their conflicting loyalties, Ariel and Max's friendship soon deepens into love, but betrayal will shatter them both, driving Ariel back to Paris and the Ritz, the home of her estranged American heiress mother, with unexpected consequences. So then, yeah, we move from France of 1914 to France of 1942. Raised by her indomitable, free-spirited American grandmother in the glamorous Hotel Ritz, Marguerite Daisy Villon remains in Paris with her daughter and husband, a Nazi collaborator, after France falls to Hitler. At first reluctant to put herself and her family at risk to assist her grandmother's resistance efforts, Daisy agrees to act as a courier for a skilled English forger known only as Legrand, who creates identity papers for resistant members and Jewish refugees. But as Daisy is drawn ever deeper into Legrand's underground network, committing increasingly audacious acts of resistance for the sake of the country and the man she holds dear, she uncovers a devastating secret, one that will force her to commit the ultimate betrayal and to confront at last the shocking circumstances of her own family history. So yeah, this book, 1914, 1942, and then we do move to 1964. So since there's 3 authors for this book, I take it that each of the authors is writing each narrative for whatever decade, you know? So yeah, for the 1964 decade, for Barbara Babs Langford, her husband, Kit, was the love of her life, yet their marriage was haunted by a mysterious woman known only as La Fleur. On Kit's death, American lawyer Drew Baudouin appears at her door, hired to find a resistance fighter turned traitor known as La Fleur. The investigation has led to Kit Langford. Curious to know more about the enigmatic La Fleur, Babs joins Drew in his search, a journey of discovery that takes them to Paris and the Ritz, into unexpected places of the heart. Good God, this description is very lengthy. Yeah, guys, I've probably been sitting here for about 2 or 3 minutes just reading this description. There's a lot going on in this book with 3 decades of narrative, with 3 different ladies leading, you know, the narrative or whatever. Good Lord, there's a lot going on, but it sounds very good nonetheless. Next up, And They Called It Camelot by Stephanie Marie Thornton. And this is a book that focuses on Jackie Kennedy, you guys, which is awesome. Few of us can claim to be the authors of our fate. Jackie Kennedy knows no other choice. With the eyes of the world watching, Jackie uses her effortless charm and keen intelligence to carve a place for herself among the men of history and weave a fairy tale for the American people, embodying a senator's wife, a devoted mother, a first lady, a queen in her own right. But all reigns must come to an end. Once JFK travels to Dallas and the clock ticks down those 1,000 days of magic in Camelot, Jackie is forced to pick up the ruined fragments of her life and forge herself into a new identity that is all her own, that of an American legend. I am definitely picking this book up. That sounds really awesome, you guys. Next up, Beheld by Tarshia Nesbitt. Tarshia Nesbitt? I might be pronouncing her first name a little incorrectly. It begins with a killing. Oh my God, I'm already hooked. It begins with a killing, you guys. 10 years after the Mayflower struck shore on rocky, unfamiliar soil, Plymouth is not the land its residents had imagined. Seemingly established on a dream of religious freedom, the town is led by fervent Puritans who prevent the Anglican residents from worshiping as they choose. The Billingtons, Anglicans, outsiders, and rebels have just had enough, and that's when a stranger arrives. With gripping immersive details and beautiful prose, this story has reframed the story of the Pilgrims in the historically under-recorded voices of 2 women of very different status and means. And yeah, Plymouth, it's vivid and ominous, populated by famous and unknown characters alike, each with conflicting desires and questionable behavior. Suspenseful and literary, Behold is about a murder and a trial, but it's also about the motivations, personal and political, that cause people to act in unsavory ways. This sounds really awesome, you guys. I definitely gotta keep my eyes out for this. This sounds really, really good. Next up, Cartier's Hope by M.J. Rose. Taking place in New York in 1910, a city of magnificent skyscrapers and winding subways where poor immigrants are crammed into tenements while millionaires thrive in Fifth Avenue mansions. Vera Garland is a 32-year-old journalist fighting alongside hundreds of women for a place in society, only to meet hurdles around every turn. Most female journalists are delegated to the fashion and lifestyle pages, but like her hero, Nellie Bly, Vera is a fighter. When news of the Hope Diamond, a jewel whose infamous legends and curses have captured the world's attention, arrives in the city, Vera is fast on its trail. She's certain the fabulous jewel will help jumpstart her career, but she's determined to seek revenge against her current employer, a magazine owner whose greed and blackmailing schemes led to the death of her beloved father. Set against the backdrop of New York's glitter and grit, this enchanting historical novel explores the very human desire for truth, equality, and retribution. Ooh, sounds fantastic. Next up, Codename Helene by Ariel Lawhon. So, we take place in 1936, and Nancy Wake is an intrepid Australian expat living in Paris who has bluffed her way into a reporting job for Hearst newspaper. She is fighting to cover the disturbing reports of violence coming out of Vienna and Berlin when she meets the wealthy French industrialist Henry Fiocca. No sooner does Henry sweep Nancy off her feet and convince her to become Mrs. Fiocca, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, guys, then the Germans invade France and she takes yet another name, a code name. So it looks like she takes the name of Lucien Carlier. So as Lucien Carlier, she smuggles people and documents across borders under the guise of an oblivious mistress. Soon enough, the Gestapo hears of a female operative with a remarkable ability to evade capture, and Nancy earns a new nickname, the White Mouse. But this one carries with it a 5 million franc bounty on her head. Forced to escape France and leave Henry behind for the safety of both of them, Nancy enters training with the Special Operations Executives, who transform her into Helene. Finally, with mission in hand, Nancy is airdropped back into France as the deadly Madame Andre. She soon becomes one of the most powerful leaders in the French resistance, known for her ferocious wit, her signature red lipstick, and her ability to summon weapons straight from the Allied forces. But no one can protect Nancy if the enemy finds out these 4 women are one and the same, and the closer to liberation France gets, the more exposed she and the people she loves will become. Oh, once again, another really fantastic sounding novel, you guys. I'm going to say that for all these books, Dreamland by Nancy Bilyeu. The year is 1911 when 20-year-old heiress Peggy Battenberg is invited to spend the summer in America's playground. The invitation to the luxurious Oriental Hotel a mile from Coney Island is unwelcome. Despite hailing from one of America's richest families, Peggy would much rather spend the summer working at the Moonrise bookstore than keeping up appearances with New York City socialites and her snobbish, controlling family. But soon it transpires that the hedonism of nearby Coney Island affords Peggy the freedom she has always been yearning for, and it's not long before she finds herself in love with a troubled, pure-side artist of humble means, whom the Battenberg patriarchs would surely disapprove of. Disapprove they may, but hidden behind their pomposity lurk a web of deceit, betrayal, and deadly secrets, and as bodies begin to mount up amidst the sweltering clamor of Coney Island, it seems the powerful Battenbergs can get away with anything, even murder. Extravagant, intoxicating, and thumping with suspense, best-selling Nancy Bilyeu's magnificent Dreamland is a story of corruption, class, and dangerous obsession. Next up is a book in the young adult genre for historical fiction, and that is Gone by Nightfall by D. Gerritsen. It's 1917, and Charlotte Mason is determined to make a life for herself in Tsarist Russia. When her mother dies, Charlotte is forced to put her plans to go to medical school aside to care for her unruly siblings. Then a handsome new tutor arrives. Charlotte has high hopes that he'll stay, freeing her up to follow her dreams of becoming a doctor. But there's more to Dmitri than meets the eye. Just when she thinks she can get her life back, Russia descends into revolution and chaos. Now, not only does Charlotte need to leave Russia, she needs to get her siblings out too, and fast. Can Charlotte flee Russia, keep her siblings safe, and uncover Dmitri's many secrets before she runs out of time? Probably not. It's a young adult novel. There's probably going to be all sorts of crazy things happening in Tsarist Russia during the revolution, you guys. Next up is book 5 in the 6 Tudor Queens series, and that is Catherine Howard, The Scandalous Queen by Alison Weir. And you guys, I have been purchasing all of these books. I have yet to read them, but as I've kind of been mentioning, I'm waiting for all of the books to be released in this series with all of the wives of Henry VIII, and then I plan on like binging through the whole series. So yeah, up next in the series we have Catherine Howard, who was King Henry VIII's, King Henry VIII's fifth wife. So yeah, a naive girl thrust forward by her ambitious family, a pretty girl who has captured the heart of the king. Catherine sings, she dances, she delights in the pleasures of being queen. The king tells the world she is his rose without a thorn. But this young woman has a past of which Henry knows nothing. It comes back increasingly to haunt her, even as she courts danger yet again. For those who gather roses must beware of the thorns. I love the story of Catherine Howard, you guys. It's just so tragic. Oh, that poor girl. After Anne Boleyn, I think Catherine Howard is my next favorite wife of Henry VIII. Next up, Lady Clementine by Marie Benedict. It's 1909. Clementine Churchill steps off of a train with her new husband, Winston. An angry woman emerges from the crowd to attack, shoving him in the direction of an oncoming train. What? Just before he stumbles, Clementine grabs him by his suit jacket. This will not be the last time Clementine Churchill saves her husband. Lady Clementine is the ferocious story of the brilliant and ambitious woman beside Winston Churchill, the story of a partner who did not flinch through the sweeping darkness of war, and who would not surrender either to expectations or to enemies. I'm really excited for this because we hear so much about Winston Churchill, just everything. We know everything about him, and so I'm excited to learn more about his wife because I'm pretty sure she's a very fascinating woman. And yeah, wasn't she? Yeah, she was on like season 1 of The Crown, Netflix's The Crown. I really liked her on Netflix's The Crown because it was nice seeing her portrayed on there. Next up, The Body Outside the Kremlin by James L. May. Okay, so I'm going to be getting through some Russian pronunciations here, you guys, so please pardon my terrible American accent trying to pronounce Russian names. So yeah, this location, what is this location? Let me see if I can pronounce it. Solovetsky? I'm gonna like say it really quick and act like I know what I'm saying, you guys. So, Solovetsky occupies the island site of a former monastery in the White Sea. Here, hundreds of miles from civilization, and with a skeleton crew of secret policemen in charge, some prisoners are consigned to all kinds of forced labor, and others sit at comfortable desks in administrative or cultural positions. With the brutal winter fast approaching, Toya Bogomolov, a young mathematician serving a 3-year sentence, hopes an acquaintance he's been cultivating will lead to a less brutal work assignment, maybe even a little more bread in his ration. Knowing Gennady Anatov holds a privileged position, restoring the monk's seized collection of icons ought to improve Toya's odds of reassignment. But when Anatov's body, is discovered floating and frozen in the bay, their connection turns dangerous. Why are there always bodies floating in like random lakes and rivers whenever I'm reading a book set in Russia, you guys? So I just lost where I was. There I am. At first, the authorities question Toya, but then he's mystified when they assign him to assist the elderly detective investigating the case. But better to find the real killer than have the murder pinned on him. Digging into Anatov's secret digging into Anatov's secrets turns up strange expropriations of the museum's icons, rumors of an escape conspiracy among White Army officers, and an illicit affair with a female prisoner who won't tell all she knows. To avoid becoming the murderer's next victim, Toya must defy Solovetsky's unforgiving regime and make ruthless use of his fellow prisoners. Putting his story to paper at last means reckoning the true cost of his survival. Oh my god, this sounds awesome, you guys. This is like straight up something I would totally enjoy. I just love anything set in like historical Russia. Next up, another book I'm just wildly excited for, you guys, and that is the Borgia Confessions by Alyssa Palombo. And I just recently read her book, The Spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel, and I love that, so I would really like to get my hands on this. During the sweltering Roman summer of 1492, Rodrigo Borgia has risen to power as Pope. Rodrigo's eldest son, Cesare, forced to follow his father into the church and newly made the Archbishop of Valencia, chafes at his ecclesiastical role and fumes with jealousy and resentment at the way that his foolish brother has been chosen for the military greatness he desired. Madalena Moretti comes from the countryside, where she has seen how the whims of powerful men wreak havoc on the lives of ordinary people. But now, employed as a servant in the Vatican Palace, she cannot help but be entranced by Cesare Borgia's handsome face and manner, and finds her faith and conviction crumbling in her want of him. You know, all these books, there's always some lady comes to the Vatican, sees Cesare Borgia, and is like, oh, he is sexy. Seriously, Cesare Borgia was a very good looking man, because even his portraits that have been painted and whatnot, he looks like a very handsome looking man, you guys. So I kind of see why all these women come to the Vatican and instantly fall in love with Cesare Borgia. I digress. Where was I? As war rages and shifting alliances challenge the Pope's authority, Madalena and Cesare's lives grow inexplicably intertwined. Madalena becomes a keeper of dangerous Borgia secrets and must decide if she is willing to be a pawn in the power games of the man she loves. And as jealousy and betrayal threaten to tear apart the Borgia family from within, Cesare is forced to reckon with his seemingly limitless ambition. Yes, I'm loving this. Next up, The German Heiress by Anika Scott. Clara Falkenberg, once Germany's most eligible and lauded heiress, earned the nickname the Iron Fräulein during World War II for her role operating her family's ironworks empire. It's been nearly 2 years since the war ended, and she's left with nothing but a false identification card and a series of burning questions about her family's past. With nowhere else to run to, she decides to return home and take refuge with her dear friend Elisa. Narrowly escaping a near-disastrous interrogation by a British officer who's hell-bent on arresting her for war crimes, she arrives home to discover the city in ruins, and Elisa missing. As Clara begins tracking down Elisa, she encounters Jacob, a charismatic young man working on the black market, who, for his own reasons, is also searching for Elisa. Clara and Jacob soon discover how they might help each other, if only they can stay ahead of the officer determined to make Clara answer for her actions during the war. Propulsive, meticulously researched, and action-fueled, The German Heiress is a mesmerizing page-turner that questions the meaning of justice and morality, deftly shining the spotlight on the often overlooked perspective of Germans who were caught in the crossfire of the Nazi regime and had nowhere to turn. Ooh, lovely. Next up, The Girl in White Gloves by Carrie Mayer. Okay, and yeah, this book is about Grace Kelly, and it says, A Life in Snapshots. Grace knows what people see. She's the Cinderella story, an icon of glamour and elegance, frozen in dazzling technicolor. The picture of perfection, the girl in white gloves, a woman in living color. But behind the lens, beyond the panoramic view of glistening Mediterranean azure, she knows the truth. The sacrifices it takes for an unappreciated girl from Philadelphia to defy her family and become the reigning queen of the screen. The heartbreaking reason she trades Hollywood for a crown. The loneliness of being a princess in a fairy tale kingdom that is all too real. Hardest of all for her adoring fans and loyal subjects to comprehend is the harsh reality that to be the most envied woman in the world does not mean she is the happiest. Starved for affection and purpose, facing a labyrinth of romantic and social expectations with more twists and turns than Monaco's infamous winding roads, Grace must find her own way to her own way to fulfillment. But what she risks, her art, her family, her marriage, she may never get back. And you know, I don't know very much about Grace Kelly other than kind of like her name and that she married into like the royal family of Monaco, right? Something like that. So yeah, I'm very interested to learn more about her. Next up, this is a book that I just really freaking love the cover for some reason because it is just so unique and different and just absurd looking, you know, because the historical fiction genre, covers tend to have a certain look to them and they're all kind of predictable looking. And this cover is just very, like I said, it's very unique and just kind of made me giggle the first time I saw it. I don't know why. It's just really fun to look at. And this is The King at the Edge of the World by Arthur Phillips. The year is 1601. Queen Elizabeth is dying, childless. The nervous kingdom has no heir. It is a capital crime even to think that Elizabeth will ever die. Potential successors secretly maneuver to be in position when the inevitable arrives. The leading candidate is King James VI of Scotland, but there is a problem. The Queen's spy masters, hardened veterans of a long war on terror and religious extremism, fear that James is not what he appears. He has every reason to claim he is a Protestant, but he secretly shares his family's Catholicism. Then the last 40 years of religious war will have been for nothing, and a bloodbath will ensue. With time running out, London confronts a seemingly impossible question. What does James truly believe? It falls to Geoffrey Belloc, a secret warrior from the hottest days of England's religious battles, to devise a test to discover the true nature of King James's soul. Belloc enlists Mahmoud Ezzedine, a Muslim physician left behind by the last diplomatic visit from the Ottoman Empire, as his undercover agent. The perfect man for the job, Ezzedine is the ultimate outsider, stranded on this cold, wet, and primitive island. He will do almost anything to return home to his wife and son. Arthur Phillips returns with a unique and thrilling novel that will leave readers questioning the nature of truth at every turn. This sounds awesome, you guys. I can't wait for this. This sounds really awesome. Next up, The Queen's Secret by Karen Harper. So this book takes place in 1939. As the wife of King George VI and the mother of the future Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother shows a warm, smiling face to the world. But it's no surprise that Hitler himself calls her the most dangerous woman in Europe. For behind that soft voice and kindly demeanor is a will of steel. 2 years earlier, George was thrust onto the throne when his brother Edward abdicated, determined to marry his divorced American mistress, Miss Simpson. Vowing to do whatever it takes to make her husband's reign a success, Elizabeth endures herself to the British people and prevents the former king and his brazen bride from ever again setting foot in Buckingham Palace. Elizabeth holds many powerful cards. She's also hiding damaging secrets about her past and her provenance that could prove to be her undoing. In this riveting novel of royal secrets and intrigue, Karen Harper lifts the veil on one of the world's most fascinating families and how its secret weapon of a matriarch maneuvered her way through one of the most dangerous chapters of the century. So yeah, this is the current Queen Elizabeth II about her mother. That's awesome, you guys. I don't know much about her, so this should be really fascinating to learn more about her. Next up, The Whispers of War by Julia Kelly. It's August of 1939. As Britain watches the headlines in fear of another devastating war with Germany, three childhood friends must choose between friendship or country. Erstwhile socialite Nora is determined to find her place in the Home Office's air raid precautions department. Matchmaker Hazel tries to mask two closely guarded secrets with irrepressible optimism, and German expat Marie worries that she and her family might face imprisonment in an internment camp if war is declared. When Germany invades Poland and tensions on the home front rise, Marie is labeled an enemy alien, and the three friends find themselves fighting together to keep her free at any cost. Ooh, no. Next, The Words I Never Wrote by Jane Tyne. Okay, so we have two dueling narratives here. We have like a contemporary setting and then also a historic setting. So yeah, as far as the present day setting goes, it says New York in present day. On a whim, photographer Juno Lambert buys the 1931 Underwood typewriter that once belonged to celebrated journalist Cordelia Cabell. or capital, I'm not sure. Within its case, she discovers an unpublished novel, igniting a transatlantic journey to fill the gaps in the story of Cordelia and her sister's loving yet tempestuous relationship. So then we move to England in 1936. Cordelia's socialite sister, Irene, marries a German man from a powerful family who whisks her away to Berlin. Cordelia remains in England to pursue the writing career she cherishes, but in the male-dominated world of journalism, she can only get hired as a typist. The sisters exchange letters as politics begin to boil in Europe and tensions come to a head. When Cordelia discovers Irene's husband is a Nazi sympathizer, does that make Irene one by proxy? With increasing desperation, Cordelia writes to Irene, seeking to understand her loyalties, but the sisters' letters don't tell the whole story. So Cordelia decides to fill in the blanks by sitting down with her typewriter and finally writing the truth. When Juno discovers the trove of letters the two exchanged, a vivid portrait of Berlin in the devastating years during and after the war comes into focus. In this moving novel, Jane Tyne offers an intimate glimpse into a lesser-known side of World War II. Oh. And the last book I have here is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. And this book says that it was published in April of 2019, but I don't know if that was maybe off in Europe, possibly. Maybe a release date there. I'm not really quite sure. Because, yeah, it's just now getting like a hardback release here in America, so that's why I'm including it on this list. Okay. Bridie Devine, is that how her name is pronounced? Bridie? Bridie Devine, a female detective extraordinaire, is confronted with the most baffling puzzle yet: the kidnapping of Christabel Berwick, secret daughter of Sir Edmund Athelstan Berwick, and a peculiar child whose reputed supernatural powers have captured the unwanted attention of collectors trading curiosities in this age of discovery. Winding her way through the labyrinthine, sooty streets of Victorian London, Bridie won't rest until she finds the young girl, even if it means unearthing a past that she'd rather keep buried. Luckily, her search is aided by an enchanting cast of characters, including a 7-foot-tall housemaid, a melancholic tattoo-covered ghost, and a avuncular apothecary, but secrets abound in this foggy underworld where spectacles king and nothing is quite what it seems. Blending darkness and light, history and folklore, Things in Jars is a spellbinding gothic mystery that collapses the boundary between fact and fairy tale to stunning effect and explores what it means to be human in inhumane times. There's almost like a Penny Dreadful sort of kind of vibe to this, you guys. Is it just me? So, you guys, that is it for this month's Historical Fiction 101, sharing with you some upcoming books that are going to be released between January through July of 2020. Pretty much all these I'm very excited to try and get. There's no way I'm going to get every single one of them, but I would like to get as many of these as I possibly can. So you guys, in the comments below, any books that I've left out, any historical fiction books that you guys are looking forward to, just let me know down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.